All right, I think it's time to get started. So, good afternoon, Mississippi Valley Division. Welcome to our second installment of In the Valley. I am Major General Diana Holland, and I will serve as the moderator for today's event. So, for starters, during the last 10 minutes, you had the opportunity to answer our poll question. If I told you your next boss is a woman, what is the first word that comes to mind? And as you should see on the screen right now, the word cloud that will reflect your answers. And so that's continuing to populate. So it looks like the top, still moving around. All right, so certainly the biggest word in the center that you see, or if you can't see it, it says great. Looks like the next one is awesome. Followed up by good, cool, excited, fantastic. Looks like it scores up there pretty well too. All right, so I appreciate everybody answering that question and providing those answers. So the poll's going to reset, and for the remainder of the hour, while the guests and I move through our discussion, you'll have the opportunity to vote one more time, and then we'll look at the word cloud again at the end and just see if the results look any different. I would ask that when you send in your vote a second time, give us a little time to get through some of the conversation. Maybe it changes an opinion or an idea about a woman as a boss, but we'll just see when we get to the end. So appreciate that, Cameron. Thanks for showing us that slide. All right, so again, thank you for joining us today. I'm looking at our number of participants right at this moment. We've got 278 and climbing. That number is growing. I'd also like to note that we do have some USACE guests from outside of MVD tuning in to see what this is all about. So I'd like to thank them for joining us as well. So ladies and gentlemen, we in the Mississippi Valley Division are blessed with incredible talent. And we happen to have 3 female senior leaders, Pat Hemphill, DPM of Vicksburg, Susan Wilson, DPM St. Louis, and Kim Thomas, DPM of Rock Island in our region. And they have graciously accepted the invitation to be a part of this panel. So these leaders have diverse backgrounds, are exceptionally experienced and widely respected. So it really was a no-brainer to form a panel with these 3 professionals to discuss women in USACE and specifically female leadership in the Mississippi Valley Division. So thank you, ladies, for being willing to do this. I know I'm looking forward to this discussion, and from what I can tell by the size of the audience, we're over 300 now, they're looking forward to it as well. One administrative note to our audience. If you have questions of this panel on the topic that we're covering today, please enter those questions in the chat, and as time allows, I will ask a couple of questions towards the end. We'll also be taking your questions in the chat for after the event. If we can't get to them, we won't attempt to answer them. We will answer them, and we'll distribute those answers at a later time. So, to begin, I want to start by giving each of these 3 ladies the opportunity to make opening remarks. We'll take about 2 to 3 minutes. I've given them wide purview to talk about whatever they want to talk about. This will be their time. So we'll start things off with Pat Hemphill. Pat, over to you. If you could start with your introductory remarks.
Thank you, ma'am, and good afternoon. I hear echoes, everything. You get my audio good? Audio check? Good. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to share just a little bit about what everyone would not be able to read on my bio. I am a native of Vicksburg, of course, you know that, but I enjoy being outside. Hard worker. My latest toy is a chainsaw. I'm sure nobody knows that, but that's how I relieve stress, is just getting out in the yard and doing some productive things. I really am grateful that I'm bloomed where I planted, so to speak, and that goes back to my love of outside and love of gardening. And again, a native of Vicksburg, and have spent all of my career, the bulk of my career here, with some short-term stints in other places. But just, again, I'm glad for this opportunity to share. Over.
All right. Thank you, Pat. And we'll go to Susan Wilson next.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to talk with you all. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about how I decided to become an engineer. When I was in high school, I wanted to be, went back and forth between a math teacher and a pharmacist. And when I got into my senior year, I was set on being a high school math teacher until my dad came to me and he said, you know, Susan, I think you should think about becoming an engineer. He said, I think you can do it. And then I had a chemistry teacher that kind of said the same thing, that I should think about it. And so I decided, well, my brother was going to University of Missouri-Rolla, and he was doing it, so maybe I could give it a try and see what happened. So I went to school, became an engineer, and then got married and moved to a different state and was looking for an engineering job. I was trying to get settled and with everything that goes on with moving, graduating, getting married, and I thought, well, maybe I do want to be a math teacher. So I signed up to go to school to get my master's in math. And the first day of class, it was a proofs class. And the instructor was sitting there, and he was doing the stuff on the board, and I thought, this is terrible. I have no interest in this. Who would want to do this? And then the guy next to me said, this is awesome. This is so cool. And I went home that night, and I told my husband, I said, that's it. I'm going back to being an engineer. So sometimes you just need someone to encourage you to try something, and then sometimes you need to give something a try to realize that maybe that's not the fit. And I've had that once I've come to the core when I've had people say, you know, Susan, think about what you want to do next, and encouraged me to take that next step. So that's all I have for now. Just looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
All right. Great comment, Susan. Appreciate that. Okay, over to Kim Thomas.
All right. Can you hear me? All right. Sounds good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us and giving us this opportunity to discuss just a really important topic that it's going to take each one of us to overcome. So just a little bit about me. My pride and joy is my family, especially my 4 nephews and my niece. They keep me busy. I work every day to make the world a little bit better place for them to grow up in. And so I grew up in Ashland, Nebraska. So that's a little small town between Omaha and Lincoln. And my life pretty much consisted of going to school, playing basketball and softball, and really being a part of the family businesses, which were a construction and dredging company, as well as a farming operation. So in my free time, I was either walking beans and pulling weeds in the summer, or driving a tractor with a grain cart during harvest, or in a dozer even pushing sand. And what you'll do is you'll probably find me in my free time still doing some of that. Maybe not pulling weeds, but the other two for sure. So I had my sights set on medical school, but life events changed, and I figured since my grandfather and my father were both engineers, I figured I could probably do it as well. And so I enrolled into engineering school, and then I started working for the Corps. Well, I was a co-op student first, and then I graduated, went on the DA intern program for a couple of years, and then ultimately ended up as a geotech engineer, designing airfields, helipads, levees, just things like that. So for about 20 years, I worked in numerous positions in the Omaha district before accepting the DPM job here in Rock Island District just about a little over a year ago. So I made the move across the state of Iowa. I started as a DPM, went to DC Congressionals. We came back and we sent everybody home due to COVID. So it's been quite the experience coming into a brand new district and division, and only have met, you know, some of our folks through web meetings a whole year later. So I'm just so proud to be a part of this team, and just amazed at the professionalism, the technical competence, and the hard work they display every single day in light of all the challenges that we have in front of us. So just a little bit about my leadership philosophy and passion. I can really sum that up in 3 points. People, delivering the program, and selfless service. For the people portion of it, just leave the organization a better place than when you came into it. Every day I challenge our team to be more efficient, effective, and push each other to grow to our full potential. Second one is just delivering the program for the nation. We're just in this amazing organization with awesome projects and programs that are just really bettering the nation that we live in. Every single day we look for new opportunities to take some risk-informed decisions, cut some red tape. So I'm very excited to be a part of this. I think especially coming into a new district and a new division, I hear a lot, why would we change? We've always done it that way. And that just really challenges me because I want to find new ways to do things. And it's an opportunity to lead that change and really get folks on board when they see new ways of doing things that really do save time and money and often result in even less frustration. And then lastly, selfless service. Find time to give back to your community, help your teammates, help others in need for the betterment of society. We all have a lot to offer, and so just, reach out to folks, be that mentor that they need. The smallest gestures just make the world go round a little bit easier. So finishing up, I'm just so honored to be part of this great district, division, and entire Corps of Engineers enterprise. And I'm just thankful to have the privilege of being on the same team of every one of you. So thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Kim. And so I'm sure the audience can see why the three of you are in the positions you're in and why you're a part of this panel and are the right ones to talk about this topic. So now I'd like to move on to some more pointed questions intended to get after a little bit more about your experiences and how you navigated your very impressive careers. So I'm going to start with Kim, and it goes to childhood dreams, perceived obstacles. So in a nutshell, when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? How did you approach any perceived limitations, assuming you did perceive limitations?
Oh, thanks, ma'am, for the question. Growing up, I always wanted to be a doctor. As I grew older, my passion to become a doctor just continued to grow because I really wanted to help people and help them feel better. Unfortunately, the summer before medical school, I was in a pretty bad jet ski accident that left me with multiple broken bones on my left side, an artificial knee, months in the hospital, and years of rehab. It was a big life change for me, and after being in the hospital for so long and so many surgeries, I just decided to forego medical school and pursue an engineering degree. Growing up, I felt all options were really open to me, and I contributed that to my parents were and still are amazing supporters who never limited my dreams. They always challenged me to grow and be diversified, and even supported me when I had all these great ideas that they knew would probably fail ultimately. But they instilled self-confidence in me from very early on, as well as independence and understanding just that, you can't control what people say to you, but you really can control how you respond to that, and that's really what defines you. I think all of these just really formed who I am today and emphasizes really the importance of instilling these at an early age and really supporting and guiding our next generation. I was also really fortunate to grow up in a small community that every kid was really valued. And, we always kind of had the motto, aim high. I remember in high school and middle school, we'd always have, famous alumni come back and talk to us. And there was never a woman. And at this point, I still felt that all options were open to me, but I was curious as to why there was no female alumni role models. And I remember thinking, are my dreams really possible? Am I really going to be able to go where I want to go? And I remember asking some of those alumni, and they're all. I said, hey, why are women not coming back to talk to us? Are women really at the CEO level? And do they exist? I mean, would they ever exist? I mean, I was in a small town, so, you know, I didn't know what the world, you know, had upon us. So I was still like kind of questioning that. But, you know, every single one of them just put their arms around each one of us and just said, you know, reach for the stars. You know, we're all the same, whether you're a man, woman, white, color, rich or poor. You know, as long as you work hard and have a passion, you'll be the next person back here, you know, as an alumni and inspiring women to do the same. So I think really the moral of the story is back to, you know, my initial thoughts on selfless service is just, you know, be humble, believe and encourage each other, and really give back to the community. You know, you just don't know when that simple gesture may inspire somebody to really go out and do stuff and be successful. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Kim. You know, I took a bunch of notes as you were talking. There was a lot of great nuggets there. Having a challenge that you had to overcome, people who supported you as you were working through it, and then the focus of selfless service, which helps with perspective, certainly through challenging times. So I think that was awesome. You know, and I'll go to the point about people who make a difference, and I'm going to go next to Pat. As we think about people who make a difference and who mentor us and who are there to help us through thick and thin. If you could share, Pat, one person of choice who made a difference in your career progression, and if you could tell us what it was they said or did to make a difference for you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, you know, when I looked at this question and I thought about my response, you made me go down some very dark halls and corridors that I long had since forgotten. But I think the one person that made a difference in my career progression was actually an attorney here at the district. And the one thing that they said and did that made the difference was I was at a crossroads in my career when I was doing a lot of leadership development, and there was an opportunity to do a developmental assignment somewhere, but I had to, of course, break service to do that. And what he said to me was, I wish you wouldn't go. He said, I wish you wouldn't go because you have such value here at this district, and that you don't know the impact that you have on people and what difference your presence makes and the future that you have here as a leader. And when he said that, you know, it struck me because no one had ever spoke those words to me with regards to professional career, or no one had ever spoke those words to me here at the organization. And I talked to many people as I was pondering that movement, but that to me was just so profound that you never know who's watching, and you never know who has their eye on you, or you just never know who can plant a seed in you when it comes from where you least expect it.
Yeah, great words of wisdom, Pat. And I think when you said an attorney was the person that helped you, that's who you reflected upon. I think I just heard a cheer from all members of the Office of Counsel, Community of Practice, cheering for you. So, yeah, thank you for that. And I think, and that's the second time one of you has mentioned, you just never know a small act, or you never know when the person you're interacting with, what that's going to mean later and how it will come back to benefit you. So thank you. So over to Susan. We do talk a lot about mentoring these days. There has been certainly an increase in that discussion across all programs, I think, amongst all professions. We talk about it in our leader development programs. Our schools are talking about it. It is definitely something I've talked about more in USACE than perhaps previous assignments. So I get the question, and I think you do as well, and I'm going to give you a chance to answer this. What is your recommendation for current employees who are seeking mentors? Well,
I think the first thing is don't be afraid to ask. I think so many times people think, I'm interested in talking more with that person and getting their advice, but they're just too busy. I think you'll find that most leaders, it's one of their favorite things to do. I'm actually mentoring someone right now that reached out to me through TED that's in Savannah District. And I'm not smart enough to figure out how she found me, but she read my bio and said, hey, I'm interested. And so, in this case, it's 2 different divisions, 2 different districts. We've never even met face-to-face, but we've been able to establish a relationship. And I think it's good to sometimes have that different perspective. I've always looked for different mentors, and at any given time I'll have more than one because it may be a different question or a different situation that I need to reach out to them. So I would just say, ask, make sure that you have 1 or 2 or 3, and I think you'll find that it's a truly beneficial relationship that you can get a lot out of. So don't be afraid or discouraged that, maybe I'm just too early in my career. I should wait until I have more time. I think as soon as you get started, you really should start to look for one. Thanks.
Yeah, great answer. Don't be afraid to ask. I can't imagine anybody asked to serve as a mentor would say no. And that's really the worst thing that could happen. So that's a great answer, Susan. So back over to Kim and continuing the discussion of mentoring. Who did you seek out as mentors? And if you could also highlight whether they were mostly men, women, both, whatever the composition was.
Yeah, sure. So I've been fortunate to have such great mentors in my career, up until through this day. I remember looking up at, I think I was, maybe even a college student at this time. And I remember being in a meeting with the DPM at this time. And I thought, oh my goodness, that person is so inspirational, but, I can't reach out to them. I'm just a student. Right. And I had other folks say, reach out to them. Right. They'll be more than happy to talk with you. And I did. And it ended up being, to this day, one of my greatest mentors. So I think there's kind of 2 ways of getting mentors. One is kind of selecting them yourself, and the other one is mentors reaching out and put their arm around folks. And so I just want to emphasize that as we continue to be leaders in the organization, those folks are looking up to you, and make sure you're being inclusive with them and putting your arm around them, bringing them into the fold, making them feel, comfortable. I just think that we can probably do a better job of that. I think life just gets busy, and work gets busy, and family gets busy, and we forget. Especially in the COVID world, we forget that, we do still need to mentor, and we still need to make sure that they feel inclusive. I have both male and female mentors. I would say, though, I definitely have more male than female, and I don't really know why. I'm not sure of that. It's just kind of how it has worked. But when I look for a mentor, I really look for individuals that are going to be honest with me and challenge me and help me see different viewpoints, and someone that I can really build a relationship with. That I can just bounce ideas off, without feeling that I might be judged for what I have to say. I'll share a personal story with you. When I was selected for the DPM position here, I was also selected for another position at the same time. And the DPM position, meant that I was going to leave my family, but I knew that it would be more challenging, and I'd have the ability to make the most change. And so I really struggled with it. And I reached out to one of my mentors who's an SES in the other division. And I talked to her about it, and she said, I think it's pretty clear, you need to go where you're challenged. You need to, be in a position that you can affect change. Now, I'll tell you, she wasn't going to make the decision for me, although I kind of wanted her to at the time, because I was pretty stressed about it. But, I think that, she really challenged me to think, and she kind of gave me that extra nudge, and then, assured me that I probably should take the DPM position. It probably was the right place. And to me, this is exactly what mentoring should be. Challenge you, provide you some different viewpoints, reassuring, that change really does make us grow. And then, a leader who supported me, even if it meant I was leaving her division, to go to another district and division. So, I think that I really looked up to that more than anything. She wasn't looking at it for herself. She was looking at it for the enterprise. And so that's what I really look for in a mentor. And I would just completely agree with Susan as well. Just reach out to folks that, I don't think I've ever seen anybody say no to somebody that asked them to be their mentor. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thanks, Kim. I think, a couple of things that you all have hit on, trust, building the relationship, people who will be honest with you and will support you no matter what. And Kim, we're glad that your mentor encouraged you to be the DPM at Rock Island and that you're an MVD. And I think the last thing I'll comment on is seems to not be unusual that professional women have more male mentors than female mentors, and that's probably the pool. It's absolutely essential that men are part of that, the raising up and the promotion of women and highlighting talent. So thank you all for that discussion on mentoring. I think that's been incredibly valuable. So moving from that topic, I'd like to shift a little bit to challenges and obstacles in your professional lives. And Pat, I'll look to you to lead us off with this. Have you ever experienced or observed negative stereotyping of women? And if so, how have you handled it?
Yes. And yes. And yes. Absolutely. During my career, of course, being in a predominantly male environment, and being in the South, let me throw that part in there. Southern gentlemen just by nature try to do things. They don't deliberately, I don't think, intend to do it, but sometimes they are deliberate. But yes, I have experienced and observed negative stereotyping. I think the first experience that I'd share would be in the context of the difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness when it comes to women and men. I've observed my male counterparts would exhibit the exact same characteristics that I do, and then they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then I exhibit those same characteristics, and it's like, well, you need to tone it down a bit. And it's like, wait. So the way that I manage that or handle that is like, I am not going to let my confidence and my delivery be impacted by your, or be impacted because you're intimidated by me, for lack of a better word. Not to say that I'm overconfident or that I want to make someone else feel less, but I think the time is way past when women should try to downplay their natural skills, their natural abilities, their natural delivery, their natural leadership, just because someone thinks the little lady shouldn't be doing it like that or shouldn't be saying it like that. The other experiences have been more with work, more than in meetings, and that was, when we were actually out in the field. Sometimes the guys would say, well, you just go over, take notes, or sit in the truck, and we're going and no. It's like I told them in college. I've got to learn how to run this tripod and surveying lab. I've got to learn how to do the soil combinations, the soil testings. So I want to get my hands dirty. That's why I'm here. So just you have to, but it's a balance. It's an art and a balance to make people understand that you are there because you want to be and because you're capable and because, for lack of a better word, you're confident. You're confident in who you are. And I think a lot of times that intimidates not only men but women, other women as well. And you were talking about mentors, and I hate to digress, but when sometimes people think you're not approachable. Because we're confident, because you hear us speaking, does not mean that we're not approachable. And it doesn't mean that we don't mind being questioned. But I think sometimes people perceive or think that because that we say something and we're deliberate and we're confident because we know what we're talking about, because we know we're going to be challenged, that they're intimidated by that. So those challenges and experiences, I think, will come, but I don't think they're coming now as frequent as they used to. I think we're overcoming a lot of the stereotypes by simply educating.
Thanks, Pat. What a powerful answer. And one of the things I'll highlight is it's not just the responsibility of supervisors and those around us to put us in the right place and to facilitate. That's absolutely one of the roles they must serve as. But it's incumbent upon individuals to assert themselves and make sure they're not, when given the option, do you want to sit over here or do you want to get your hands dirty, so to speak, figuratively or actually, that we got to step in and do it and take those opportunities whenever the opportunities present themselves. So thanks, Pat. Over to Susan, a slightly broader question. What gender-related challenges, even beyond stereotyping, have you faced in your career, and how have you overcome them?
I think the most common one that probably comes to mind is questioning of my authority, or a questioning of, that's really your job. I can think back, especially when I was the ENC deputy, where I had many times where people would ask, and sometimes I think it's a matter of my sex and then my age. I'm young and I look young, that would say, what is it you said you do? I think one story back, I was at headquarters for a meeting, and I was with two of the branch chiefs from engineering, and a couple of headquarters people were there, including some SESers, and we were all introducing ourselves, and they knew a couple of them, and, I said my title, and they said, what is it you said you did again? And they all kind of looked, and the two branch chiefs were on either side of me, and they both just looked at him, and they said, she's our boss, like, end of story, because they were used to it. And then the people at headquarters kind of all went, oh. But I think to this day they maybe thought I was a daughter of one of the branch chiefs, and thought I was just along for the ride. But I found that over the last few years, those questions have kind of gone away. But how did I overcome them? I've just always been myself. People may look at me and just kind of dismiss me as a person in the room, kind of like Pat talked about, or just go sit over to the side and take the notes. But I'm just myself, and I, speak up when I need to speak up, and I'm not afraid of what people might think, and just prove it, by your actions and doing a good job and proving, what you're capable of on a day in and day out basis. Thanks.
Great answer, Susan. Your experience with folks asking what you do, at least on the uniform side, I have the advantage of wearing my rank, and so I don't get that quite so much. I get more of the stunned look that I am wearing the uniform and what it suggests that I do. So, but you're right, and I think we've all touched on it. It is changing. We notice some of these things are happening a little less frequently, so certainly moving in the right direction. So now I'd like to shift to the topic of leadership and inclusiveness in the workplace, and I will start off with Pat on this. What advice, Pat, would you offer to male or female supervisors to be more inclusive of women or other underrepresented groups?
Okay, I'd like to answer this from two perspectives. The first perspective is with regards to recruiting, and that is I'd recommend you look for you define your skills, you define what you're looking for, and then you also define what you need. Okay, you get your resumes and you look at it and you interview, and don't necessarily focus on what you see or what you see on the resume. Look beyond that and really listen during the interview for potential, because some things that may not be quite as evident, and I think as we maybe modify the interview process, we'll be able to ask probing questions to draw out what you're looking for. Are you looking for the person to step in and do the job now, or are you looking for the potential? And that'll allow you to take some safe risk. And then as you're doing your succession planning, think about overhiring, and maybe that's where you can take some risk. But at any point, you're going to have to take risk. Now I'll talk about people that are already on your team, and you're looking for someone to fill an assignment, so to speak. But you still have already somebody that fits that into the DEI category. Again, look at the skill sets that you need, look at the task that has to be done, and get the best person for the job. Get out of the gender or trying to know, well, this person has family issues, or they probably can't do that, or the limitations. Our job as managers and as supervisors are to make sure that our people have work to do. Their job is to show up and do the work and get the job done. So I think we as supervisors, especially try to think ahead and to the left and to the right and the why can't, and especially as engineers, we want the finite answer. I know this is the person that I want to do the job because they performed, and everybody's going to come to you and I want that A player. But how is your B player ever going to get to be an A player without being afforded those experiences? You know, I had that conversation with one of my supervisors during a performance appraisal time. They said, well, you hadn't done this, this, and this. And I was like, well, I can't assign the work to myself. You have to give me that opportunity. So it's male and female supervisors really think about leveling the playing field when you afford opportunities for all of your team members to develop. That's the beauty of having mentors, mentees, or having your seasoned, I call them seasoned professionals that you kind of look to train the team, and that's a safe place for them to cut their teeth, so to speak, and grow and learn. But we have to stop putting limits on people from our perceptions when there really aren't limits there. Thank you.
Yeah. Well done, Pat. Thank you. So modifying this question slightly, I'm going to go to Kim. I've been asked this a lot since I've been in USACE. And, you know, I can give a perspective, but I'm on the uniform side, and I'm not always, probably not providing the best possible answer. So, Kim, if an employee feels their supervisor is not inclusive, what would you advise them to do about it?
Well, so I have a couple of thoughts on this. First off, I just recommend, talking to your supervisor, building that open, honest, transparent communication. None of these are excuses, but, maybe they were distracted, or maybe they didn't realize that they weren't being inclusive. There could be a whole slug of some miscommunication that can be probably cleared up with a simple conversation. I know that for myself, I want everybody to feel included, but there's sometimes that either I get pulled in so many directions that I inadvertently, leave someone out of a conversation or an email, or, sometimes it's just a time factor. It happens, and it's not intentional or trying to exclude anyone. I think probably the second thought on that is just be proactive. If talking to your supervisor doesn't change things, step up and, set those examples of being inclusive. People will naturally gravitate to inclusive behavior because they want to be, part of the group. And, then hopefully your supervisor picks up on that and joins in. It's all about creating the environment. And I think that, not one person or not just leaders, nobody alone can do this. It's going to take all of us to really work on it. Over.
Yeah, super, Kim. I guarantee you gave a better answer than I did. So thank you for sharing that. I think now is probably a good time. We're in the second half of the forum, so I want to move to one of the final questions, and it regards the topic of COVID in the workplace. So for the audience, the flyer we published to advertise this episode of In the Valley included a link to the McKinsey report that covered some unique aspects that the pandemic is having on women in general, and even more acutely on women of color and mothers. And I just so happened a couple days ago read an article in the Wall Street Journal that says there are 1.5 million fewer mothers in the workplace today than was the case in early 2020. I think we can agree that's a stunning statistic, and that's going to have ramifications in the decades to come. So back to our world, though. So it's important that we think about, what is the pandemic meant for USACE? And so, Susan, for the next question, what impacts do you think COVID has had on women in USACE, and how can leaders and supervisors help?
I mean, I think it's definitely added a whole nother layer of thought and potential stress on everyone. But I'm going to talk as a working mother of 3 kids. I get it, the stress that is on you. It's, making sure in the morning, assessing everyone's symptoms. So my kids go to school, but you got to make sure cough, cold, and kids a lot of times think my stomach hurts. And you think, is it stomach hurt or is it just you saying that? I woke up in the middle of the night last night, realized I hadn't plugged my youngest Chromebook in. It has to be charged every day for school. And so it's stuff that's waking you up at night, like that you didn't have to deal with before. The people, the kids, they're in with them day in, day out. I know how stressful that can be as you're trying to help your kids learn and you're working through it all. So I think one of the things that we are all fortunate is that we work for a great organization. And most of the supervisors, all the ones I've encountered, are really respectful of that. And we've used a lot of the workplace flexibilities, such as MaxiFlex and stuff like that, to try and help accommodate that. But something that I do kind of try and bring up, I know the session's focused on women, but I know a lot of dads out there that, maybe their spouses. I have a neighbor, she's a doctor, so she's been, having to go into the workplace every day. And so it fell a lot on him. So I think as supervisors in general, we need to realize, that the stress that it has on, and everyone's situation is different, and just be respectful of that, offer up those flexibilities, and then just check in on people. I know I talk about my kids a lot, so people know tomorrow's their last virtual Friday, thank goodness, but I think most of the people that work closely with me know that come at the end of a virtual Friday, I'm about ready to pull my hair out, so I'm glad to have that. But I think it's just making sure that we're appreciative of that fact, of everything that's going on in people's lives, and we're communicating.
Thank you, Susan, for those insights. One of the reasons I asked Susan that question is that every time I see her, I ask her about how it's going with the virtual learning for her kids, and I am absolutely astounded at how she's managing all of that, as well as some of the education they're getting, the things that I can't imagine. Certainly I didn't have those, some of that education or that experience when I was their age. So thanks, Susan, for sharing that with the audience. Okay, so the last topic has to do with looking to the future, and I think we're going to close with Pat having the last word. So Pat, are you confident about the future of diversity in USACE? Yes or no? And what can the current generation of leaders do to make the DE&I successful?
Yes, I am very confident about the future of diversity in USACE. And I offer that because whenever someone approaches me about how do you get a job with the Corps and how do you progress with your career in the Corps, I always instill in them, I'll tell you what my papa told me, and that's you show up, you do your very best, and then you watch what happens. So I believe that the future of the workforce coming behind us are going to be prepared, and they will show up. They'll show up to the interviews. They'll show up on our, for our career fairs. They will show up, and they want to be a part of this great organization. So what our current generation of leaders can do is get out of themselves. And I say that because we see the now more people, we have to keep reinforcing the fact that there's no I in teams. It's a we. So when I say think more about other people and developing the ones that are going to fill your shoes and be more inclusive, and we're not just talking race, color, or, or ethnics, we're talking, different abilities. I don't like the word disability because I believe everyone is uniquely gifted to do something. So we just have to open our eyes and open opportunities and make ourselves available, as someone has already said, to go out there and be accessible, be there where somebody can touch you or ask you a question. And I think that will be the biggest force multiplier in ensuring that we have a diverse workforce that is representative of this great country that we serve.
Thanks, Pat. And I'll tag on to that one as well, is every one of us can do something about it. Every one of us every day. If we, at the end of the day, every person in USACE, certainly every leader in USACE asks, what did I do today to help with diversity, equity, and or inclusiveness? We're absolutely going to move in the right direction. And I agree with you. I'm very optimistic. USACE is taking it very seriously, starting from our chief, all the commanders, and all of our civilian leaders. So it's a great time to be in the Army and to be in the Corps of Engineers. Okay, so this has been a great discussion. I appreciate everybody's thoughtful answers and for everybody's patience as you listen to our discussion. We do have a couple of minutes, and I have a couple of questions from the audience that I've been collecting here from the chat. So I'm going to start with Kim. Question is, how do you differentiate yourself among leaders? Assuming you do try. So do you try to differentiate yourself among leaders? If yes, how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't think I do differentiate myself among leaders. I think that I stay true to myself, and I think a couple of words for that, simple and basic. Sometimes simple and basic to me is just the clearest way to move forward. I'm a pretty open book. I'm honest, maybe too honest at sometimes to feed back to folks, but I think it goes back to just staying true to yourself and just how you naturally are. Don't try to change yourself for anything or try to be somebody different over.
Anybody else? Susan, you want to take a stab at that one? How do you differentiate yourself among leaders?
I think by being myself. And, I think many that know me know taking care of people is one of my biggest priorities. It has been before it became, one of our slogans. But just looking out for the personal side of people and taking that time to make those connections. And then, like I said, just being open and honest with who I am. There's not much that I keep from other people. And I think just being genuine goes a long way.
All right. Good. Okay, we have a question. Favorite book about women in leadership or other great reads? So I'm just going to throw that out there. Actually, I'll offer my own. Recently I read, and now I'm going to draw a blank of the author, but Women Rising, a great book about 12 character traits that observers tend to see in women that prevents them from achieving, reaching the highest levels that might prevent them from moving forward. Self-inflicted, so it's very interesting. I hate to generalize about genders or any other demographic, but it was an interesting read. Any other books anybody in the panel would like to offer up?
Oh, go ahead, Pat.
No, I'd offer Monkey Management. I offer that because a lot of times that book has some great tips on how to not let people make their problems your problems. You got it. See, Susan has it too.
Mine was How to Be an Inclusive Leader by Jennifer Brown. But, yeah, that's a good one too, Pat.
Hey, I'm being asked, I think it's about, Pat, what you said. What is the name of that book?
Monkey Management.
Okay. There you have it. All right. So I have a couple of other questions here, but I'm essentially out of time. We want to now go to how you answered the poll question as we were talking. So, Cameron, if you can share that with us. Okay. Well, actually, I see a lot of, let's see, so the top 5, great, awesome, fantastic, good, cool. That's actually pretty similar to what we saw at the beginning. So maybe the word great looks even bigger than it did on the front end. So either we had more votes or you all just communicated really well as you always do. So thanks for that. I really appreciate the audience answering that poll question. And for the other questions we weren't able to get to, we've taken them down and we'll make sure that we capture those, get everybody's answers to that, including there was one about work-life balance. There was one about who do you admire. So we'll be sure to answer those and distribute them appropriately, and you'll be able to see how we did that. All right, so in closing, I want to take a couple of moments to thank the team who made this event possible. A lot of planning and work went on behind the scenes over the last 2 months for this to work and run smoothly. That included the people in the MVD staff, some key enablers from ERDIC, our employees who are in the region's Emerging Leader Program. Big shout out to them. They have really empowered this forum and made it possible. They've a lot of creativity behind the scenes, and it's been really gratifying, so thank you. And of course, I want to thank our panelists, Pat, Susan, and Kim, who have very busy schedules. What I didn't mention at the very beginning, and I should have, is that, you know, I don't know, we always have Murphy involved in our business. You know, the 1 hour, the 1 day of the year that the system, that Outlook and the network is going to collapse in Vicksburg happened about 20 minutes before we started this. And so that's why you saw Pat scrambling to join us. We were all facing it, but anyway, we were able to overcome, and I'm glad we were able to pull this off. So, Pat, thank you for being flexible and ready to answer that question because you were the first one out of the chute, too. So, but anyway, thanks to all that have made this possible. Equally important is that we see the audience support and interest. If we don't have that, we really don't have a reason to devote the resources and time into doing things like this. So speaking of interest, a reminder that you can provide feedback to this event through the chat or via email to cemvd-pa@usace.army.mil. And when you provide feedback, you can tell us what you thought of this, how it could be better, but you can also provide feedback as to what you'd like to see in the next installment. My goal is to do these once per quarter, so the next one will likely be in the July timeframe. Send us your feedback, tell us how we can do better and what you'd like to hear about down the road. So without further ado, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I appreciate what each and every one of you does every day in support of the people and resources in the Mississippi Valley and across the nation. And we are signing off from Vicksburg, Mississippi. Thanks, everybody.